HTML. All right. So I'm gonna have my HTML boilerplate over here, and I'll save that. And let me navigate here. Let me go back, and we have this. So let me now close my console, my dev tools, right? And then I'm gonna run real quick password generator, and let me squeeze this a little bit, right? So I can uh, close this, close my index, have my, let me create a styles slash main dot css, and this is one shorthand. You can, when you want to create a folder and create a file in it, you can just write the folder name slash the file, and it's automatically going to happen. So the folder gets created in the file in it. All right, so I can come back here. Let me perform a css reset. All right, and let me take this off. I don't want to do this for here for now. Let me take this off. Then all right, so back here, let me link to my css file. All right, so styles slash main. All right, so we have that over there, and then I'm going to font.google. Let me not import a font. I have a font on my system, so when you're working on a project, you may have to import a font, right? So let me just use a font family and say enter, and give it a fallback of sans serif. All right, then I have my CSS reset. The font size, I'm gonna make that 1 rem for all, and so I have this, right? Great. And coming back here, so first of all, I'm gonna have my main element. All right, and inside my main element, I'm going to have a wrapper. Let me just have my main. So inside my main, I'm gonna have sorry, I'm gonna have h1, right? Dot heading, then call that password generator, right? So we have that running for us. Then inside our password generator, I'm gonna have a div, right? Then inside that div, I'll give it a class name. I'm running out of naming ideas, right? So I'll just say main content and say main, let me say generator. All right, so inside the generator, first of all, let me open paint and then give you guys a fair idea of what I'm trying to achieve. All right, so first of all, what I want to do is I want to have something like this. Then I have the title over here. Then I have this box over here, which is going to contain the generated password. Then we can now have something, a button, an icon, or a text over here, which we can click on it to copy. And then we can have our options here. So we can choose to have ABCs, let's say capital letters, lowercase letters, then symbols, and then numbers. Then we can also have a button which will help us to generate. So this is what I'm trying to create real quick. All right, so in our generator, I'm going to have what do we call it? Inside our generator div, we're going to have, let me say, the password wrapper. All right, so the password wrapper. Then inside the password wrapper, I'm gonna have p. All right, the password text. All right, p the password text, and then I'm going to, let me just generate a random password. What am I doing? So this is one something I worked on a while back. So we're gonna try to build something like this. All right, so let me just copy this generate password and then paste it here. All right, so that we know that this is the password we are working with. Then over here, I would have p dot text. So I could say p dot copy button. All right, so I could now put here the copy. Right, and I don't want to use an icon. I just want to use a text, which we can use to still achieve the same purpose. You guys will understand exactly what I'm trying to do it later. So we have the password wrapper. Then I have another div, and I'll say options. Right. So inside the option, I'm going to have let's say an input. Right. So I will say option wrapper, and oh sorry, it's supposed to be a class. So sorry, div the option wrapper. Then with this option wrapper, I'm going to bring in an input, right? An input type of checkbox. I'll give it a name and call it, let's say, uppercase, all right? And I'm going to take off the ID because we wouldn't be needing it yet, all right? Or let me say, all right, so yeah, let me just leave that. Let me call it a class. Let me give it a class and call it a name. It's not going to be necessary if we're going to be using a class. So I'll call this class and I'll say option check, right? Then I'll come back and say that I'll have, then here I would have a label for a package, right? Then I'll upload ABC, right? So that the user can now check if they want ABC. So I'm just going to duplicate this 4 times. Then I'll just come back here and say lowercase. I'll change this to lowercase. So I'll just say A, B, C. Then I can have that same class of option check. All right. Then I'm going to come back here and change this to numbers, right? Then I'll change this to numbers. Then I want to change this to symbols. All right. Then I'll change this to symbols. All right. Then I can now change this to this, and then I'll change this to 1, 2, 3. All right, so that the user can choose to whatever option they want to have inside their password, the set of characters they want to have, they can have that over there. Then my option wrapper, after my options wrapper, I'm going to have my button, right? Then I'll say generate password, all right? So we have that over there. And we have, when we click on this, the password should be generated. And this is just our bet. Now let's do a little bit of CSS, all right? So let me try as much as possible to close this. And then I now have my CSS, all right? So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look at my main, all right? And I'll give my, first of all, on my body, I'll select my body, all right? Then I'll give it a height, sorry, a height of 100% view height, 100 viewport height. Then I'll give it a display of flex, all right? So that I would say justify content, center, then align items, center, right? So everything can be in the middle for me, in the center of the web page for me. Then I will now come back and now select my main, all right? So I'll just say main. And then what I'm gonna do is I'll give it a padding of 10 pixels. Then I'll give it let me give the body a background color of, let's say, at least blue, and that is not bad. Then I'm gonna give the main a background color of white, so that this. Then I'm gonna give it say a border radius of 10 pixels as well. Let's try to have a little bit of style, and a padding of 10 pixels. Let me make it 30. All right, so we have a better padding over here for us now. Then want us to proceed, then we can go and look at our next. The next thing we're going to look at is our heading. So we could say that heading, is it a heading? Yeah, a heading. So let me change it to title. It makes a lot more sense than that. So I can now say title, and then I would say that font size, sorry, font size is 2 rem, and let me save this so we can affect it, 1.5 rem. So we have that for us, and then we can say that border bottom, I would say 1px solid blue. All right, then I could say that padding bottom, and I'll give it a 5 pixel. Is that enough? All right, I think that is not bad. Right, so let me change this blue. Let me look for a different shade of blue, something a lot better. No. All right, I think this color is going to be great. So um, let me change this to here, and I can always remember this color code. So I would come back and create a variable. So I would say root. All right, then I would say var, sorry, main color, and assign it to this, so that I'll just be using main color over there, and you can still make that reference to it. And then I'll come back, and then I'll give it a margin bottom, right? So I'll give it an MB of 10, sorry, margin bottom of 10, and right, this also works fine for us. So the next thing I'm going to look at is the generator, right? So with our generator, there is nothing much I'm going to do yet. First of all, I'm going to pick the password wrapper, and inside my password wrapper, I have two items. I want the password and then the copy button, all right, to be side by side. So I'm going to say password wrapper. So the password wrapper, right, and display of flex. Then right, so I have it like that. Then I'm gonna give it a gap of 5 pixel. I think that is enough. Then I'll come back and say dot password text, right? The password text or password content, like password text. So that is the password itself. So I'll come back and say password text. I'm gonna give it a flex grow of 1, and it's going to take up all the available space over there, and a padding of 5 pixel, not bad, I think, right? Great. And I can give it a border of 1px solid. Let me see if my name will do the magic for me. I think that is becoming too much, so I can now define another color and say gray, right? Gray color, right? So that I could say let me choose something of the sort. In fact, let me choose something here, something that is going to be very closer to the color we're choosing, right? So let me say light, rather light color. That makes a lot more sense. So that I could put light over here. And it shouldn't be a border, right? I should say the background color. So the light, which is doesn't do the magic for me. Great. Let me just choose a random color. Trying to be creative with my colors over here. Maybe I'm not very good. Great. Then I think this is okay. Then I'll give this a border radius of 5 pixels. All right, so we have that over there. Sorry, this is supposed. Let me give these properties to the password wrapper instead. All right, so we have that. Then I could say align items center, so this can also happen. And then the padding which I give should also be for the password wrapper, and I think this doesn't look bad, right? So this as a row of 1. Then I'll just come back and say that copy button, Are you guys still with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I can now give my copy button. I would say font size 0.5 rem. Sorry, 0.5 rem. I think that's too much. 0.75 rem. I'll make it an 8. 0.8 rem. I think that it's okay. Then I'll give it a color. The color of main. Then I would say TD underline. All right, great. And I could say that you know what? Let me make this 0.85. Right, I think this is better. Then I would say cursor and pointer so that when you hover over it, you know that you can now copy. You can now click on it to do an action. Right. I think we are making progress. So password wrapper. Then I'm going to give it an MB of 10. Let me see, right? So that is not bad. Then we can now work on our options, right? So I can now come back and say that if I could say that option. So I'm now going here and say that options, and over here I'm going to give it a display of grid. All right. Then I would say grid template column. Then I would say repeat to 1FR. And then it's gonna have two of them like that. I think we haven't covered Gridbox, but definitely somewhere in the future I'll make a tutorial on Gridbox. And for now, I think we have right. So let me also give them a gap, so I can give them a gap of 10 pixels. Right. So this also works fine for us. So we can take all of this, and that is working. Then the next thing we're gonna do is say that let me look at this one. All right, so we have this over here. Though I almost missed one thing, uh, a password length. So we also have to specify how long the password is supposed to be for. All right, so for the options, I'll just say let me see what I'm going to do. Input range, right? Right. So we have this range over here, and styling this range element it's a little more complex. I'm not going to focus more on styling that one. Uh, where do I have, what did I put the range? Right, range. Then I'm going to say that mean is going to be 10. All right. So I'm going to say max is going to be 25. All right. So that when we move it, it's going to be 5 and 25. Let me see. Then when we are moving here, we have the count showing for us. And so I could come back here and before that, let me put this all in a wrapper. And so I would say range. I would say dot range wrapper. Right, so I'm gonna have this over here. Then I'll come back and have a p. Then I'll say the range value, right? And I'll put it at 25 for now. And I can also give this a value of 10, all right? So that it gets to 10. That is the minimum we can give. Or I can give it a value of 16 because we want our password. By default, the password length should be 16, all right? And so we have that over there. And then I'll come back here now. I'll say that my range wrapper, right? So before the options, dot range wrapper. Then I'll give the display of flex, right? Then I'll give it a gap of let me give it a gap of 10 pixels. I believe that is okay, great. Then I'll come back and say that the range wrapper. No, let me not use that. Let me give this range wrapper, and I'm gonna give it an ID of password length, right? So I'll just copy this, save, and then I'll just let me not let me give it a class because I want to desist from using styling up an object or an element with the ID. There's nothing wrong with it. It's gonna work fine. I just don't want to have that in my code. So password length, all right. So I'll just say flex grow of 1 so that it takes up all the available space over here. And is it accent color? Accent color. Then it save main. Let me see if that works for us. Great. So I think yeah, we are able to get that color right. All right. So we can now have we have this here. Our max is 25. Our max is 25. Our value is 16. Let me write the 16 over here because we want it to be default. This is default by system, so they should also depict the system over there. Then I feel like this increasing the padding for the password wrapper a little bit padding. Let me make it 10 rather instead of 5. I think this is great in the systems. And what we are actually supposed to do is create enough space so that when the password increases, this wouldn't affect it. But then let me not focus on that for now. I want to let's rush into JavaScript and see how this is going to work for us. Before I go there, let me move and look at my button. All right. So I could have my button over here and call this and give it a class of generate button. All right. So I'll just come back here and now say that the generate button. Then I'll give it a width of 100%. All right. Then I'll give it a border of none. Then I'll give it a padding. I'll give it a padding of 10 pixels and see if that works for us. Great. Then before that, my options, I'll give it a margin bottom, an MB of 20, which is not bad. And now, what do I do? Great. So let me give my button a background color of main. Sorry, main. And then let me round the corners, the other radius. Sorry, this 10 pixels. That is not bad. And the color should be white. All right, so we have this right. So we have just a simple password generator, which will help us to generate a password that we can copy. I'm not going to add advanced features like this. I would rather give that to you guys as an assignment. I'm going to link. I built this, so I'm going to give a link to it, and I'll let you guys to try as much as possible to replicate what I have done over here because most of the things that we have done here, we've learned just them, or we've learned them in fragments. So don't. It may not be exactly, but try to add some of the features which I have added if you can. It will help you to actually explore more. And so we have this over here. Then, right. So I think we are done with our HTML and CSS. All right. So come back here. Right. So now let me move into my JavaScript. All right. So let me create a JavaScript. Sorry. I'll create a folder. All right. Then I'll say script. Then I'll say password generator .js. And wait, what am I doing? So let me see. Password generator.js. So back in my password generator file, let me close the file tree. Then the very bottom, I'm going to link to my script and say that scripts slash password generator.js. Now let's begin doing some magic, right? So first of all, what we want to do is we want to get access to the password, right? The password, right? And then we have named this particular content as password text, right? So we could say that let password box let password box, I get it to document dot query selector. Then that is going to be what do I do? What do I do? Password box dot query selector. That is going to be dot about password text. Yeah. Sorry, they're supposed to be in string. Password text. All right. So that I can now say that password box dot inner HTML equals this, and then yeah.
So you didn't bring the full stop.
Okay, thank you. Great. So now we've been able to change it to let me change this to nothing. All right. So we've been able to change this to nothing over here, and so it means that is working. Then let's proceed. So we now have access to this. Then what we want to do is we want to what have access to the copy button, right? So we could now say that let copy button equals document query selector. Then this is going to be copy button. Then we have that, all right. So that I would say that copy button dot uh, on click. Then I would say that alert, sorry, password copied, right? So then when I click here, I have an alert that okay, password copied. Now the password has not been actually been copied. I just want to make sure that we have our button working. So we've been able to access this. We've been able to access this. All right, great. So now what we want to do is we want to generate a password. Are you getting it? So we are going to create a function. I can so we'll create a function and say generate password. Are you getting it? Then here, what we want to do is we are going to generate the password. Then what we will do over here is first of all, the other day we looked at the process, right? So what we want to do is we want to have a range of text. Are you getting it? So we will say that let uppercase letters equal to this. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a string, all right, and it's going to contain my ABCD, right? So ABCD, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, V, W, X, Y, Z, right? Then I'll come back here and say that uppercase letters. Then I would say that lowercase letters B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. All right. Is everything okay? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. All right. So I like G because I was wondering why the lowercase letters would be longer than uppercase. All right. So now I can say let so one thing I could also do, let me just do this, all right? So I can come back here and do this and do this. So you can use one let keyword and then make several, what do we call it, assignments. So let numbers, then I'll have this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 0. Then I would say, sorry, so I would say that symbols dot oh sorry symbols equals so then we have few So basically, these are the symbols which we are going to be picking from, and then I have this, so we can always access these variables and work with them. All right, great. So now what we are going to do is when we have instead of generate password, right? We are going to first of all I'll come back and then let's allowed characters, right? So because we are going to give the user the option to choose what they want, we are going to select. We are going to have allowed characters, and then allowed characters is going to contain characters that the user wants. I get it. So if the user have this check, then this will be part of the allowed characters. If the user select this, this will also be what this will also be part of the allowed characters. All right, and so what we do have here is we can now have this what empty. Are you getting it? And so when we call the generate function button, we first of all want to check. Are you getting it? So what I want to do first is I have to come back to my buttons. Sorry, my check boxes. Are you getting it? And I'm going to select all of them with this particular selector. And what I would like to do, I want to do this. I don't want to select all of them one by one, but this is a beginner project, so let me select all of them one by one, right? And so I could say that um, call this. So the names are not even that important in this case. The names are not important in this case. So I'll just say that symbols, symbols check, right? Then I would say that numbers check, check. Then I would say that uppercase, sorry, lowercase, lowercase check, and I would say uppercase check. All right, and I think did I use the option check to style anything? No, I haven't used it. All right, so everything is intact, and I think we can continue. And so what I have over here now is say that I want to check. All right, so I have to get those elements. So I would say let um, uppercase option cross document, right? Dot query selector, and that is going to be I think uppercase check, which I have over here. Everything is supposed to be so instead of having this chain of let, we can just cut everything right short. Then I could say that then we'll have what do we call it, so that then over here we could, let me bring this down, then here we could say lowercase option, and then let me just bring everything down here. So lowercase. All right, then now I can bring this and I would say numbers option. All right, um, numbers check. Then I would say symbols option and symbols check. All right, so we have all of those things there for us, and so we have now selected all of these things. And what we want to do is when we run the password generate function, we want to check if the user wants uppercase included. Are you getting it? And so if the user wants uppercase included, then we are going to add the uppercase to this. Are you getting it? So we can say that if um, what do we do? If uppercase option, are you getting it? Dot checked, then we are going to say that allowed characters plus equals plus equals uppercase letters. Is anybody confused at this point? Let me just make a quick explanation. Let me do this. All right. Now let me say uppercase option. Let me log uppercase option to the console. Uh, Log uppercase option. Let me to the console, and this is what we have. Right. This is uppercase option. Wait, I've redone it again, and now it shows it as an object. Are you getting it? Then when we look at the properties over here, we can see a whole lot of properties. And what I want us to access is the checked. Are you getting it? Now the checked property over here is showing us what false. So it means that this block we have over here wouldn't run. Are you getting it? But if we come back here and then we say that okay, we want to make sure that uppercase is checked. Are you getting it? We realize that on our HTML, let me do this like this. You realize this is now checked by default. And then when we check over here, this will come, when we look for check will be now true. So that is going to return true. Are you getting it? So I just want to explain to you what I'm doing over there. So if this is checked, then allowed characters is what plus is going to add uppercase letters. Are you getting it? I think I better, let me use a different, let me assign these ones from differently so that we don't get confused. All right, so we have this one, so the elements on the page here, then we have the characters over here. Great. So that if the user checks this one, if this is checked, then we want to make sure that these letters are now included to this. Right? So if at this point that we say that I can come back here and take this out of this function, or maybe now let me now log allowed characters to the console. All right, I think we'll be working with the console. So let me come back here and then get this in the console. Let me save. Oh, sorry. Oh, let me not log this to the console. Then let me call my function, the generate password function. All right, so now all this is allowed characters. How are you getting it? Now, if I go back here and I see this is not checked, I take the check off, you realize that it's empty. So it's an empty string that is now sent to the console for us. So I want to leave this unchecked. It should be checked, right? And so we have that working. Then I also want to run here and say that if lowercase option, right? If lowercase option is checked, then allowed character should be what? Plus, we should add lowercase letters. Are you getting it? So if I come back here and I say this is checked, then I want to make sure that all the options are checked. So what we are trying to do is by default, we'll give the user the strongest password possible. Right, so we want to have all the options checked by default. And so lowercase is now added. Then I'll run this again and then say if numbers, all right, I've lost my connection again, but I'll continue. So what we're gonna do here, we say that okay, sorry guys, I think my connection is messing up again. Let me get to share my screen. And all right, so let me have this here. We have this here. Great. So I have all my options checked, and then I would come back again and say that if allowed characters is checked, then I want to, sorry, if number option, numbers option checked, then I want to add numbers, right, to the allowed character. So that is also going to be over here. Then I'll run this one last time.
Sir, please, we can't see your screen.
You can see my screen. Okay, I was showing you. It hasn't started presenting. Can you see it now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now we have this set of allowed characters. The numbers has now been added. Then we'll run this again and say that if symbols, right? If symbols option dot check, then allowed characters plus equal to what? Symbols. Are you getting it? Now symbols has also been added. So now this is the list of this is the list of characters from which the password will randomly be generated from. Are you getting it? And instead of having this long chain, we can go with a ternary operator. Are you getting it? So that we'll say that uppercase option dot checked. Are you getting it? Allowed characters plus equals what do we call it? Uppercase letters. All right. Else null. Are you getting it? We're not gonna do anything. So let me check this. Are you getting it? And we still have the same thing running. And so let me. I'm just gonna duplicate this 4 times, and then I'm just going to make the replacement lowercase so that we have much cleaner code. I think I should have done this after the first example so that we go with it directly. Um, Nevertheless, it's never late. So when I have lowercase letters here, then we can have numbers here, then we can have symbols here. All right, and gonna take all of this out save, and we still have the same string to work with. What I would have loved to do is use one selector for all of these options. Are you getting it? And then they will be returned in the form of an array. Then I'll loop, and then but then let's go with this. This is going to work just fine for us. All right. Then what we want to do is we want to have a random selection. Are you getting it? This number should be picked at random. And so what we want to do is say that we want to say random index. Are you getting it? Random. So we'll create a variable. Say random points. Are you getting it? Equals math. So we want to generate. We want to use the math of random to generate a random number. Are you getting it? So I can now console.log a random point rather, and this is a random. It generates a random number between 0 and 1. I get it. But then we want this random number to be as long as uh, the length of our password. I get it. Uh, Remember, we have our password length. So I think I haven't also uh, assessed the password length yet, right? So let me come back here and say that password length equals document dot query selector. And now let me come back here and where is the password length, and I have used this class for it. So I can now say the password length, right? Great. And I can even just assign it to the value, to its value, and not the whole object, right? So that I'll now come and deal with this directly. So now what I want to do over here is say that this, and then I'm going to floor this, all right? So I'll say month dot floor, and I did mention the other day that the month of floor method, it rounds a decimal down. Are you getting it? It rounds down a decimal. So no matter what happens, it's going to round the decimal to 0. So whatever we log, you're always going to get what? You're always going to get 0. So before that, inside the math of random, I'm going to multiply this by the length of our allowed characters. Are you getting it? So I'll say allowed characters dot length. Are you getting it? So now we are going. Our random point is going to run what we have. What 53, and then it comes to 0. We have 33, 60, and it's going to get those random numbers, and that is the random selection that is going to happen. And those any of those characters. Remember, let me log our random characters, sorry, our allowed characters to the password, the console. So allowed characters, right? So now this is, I think, we have how many alphabets do we have? Let me not calculate this. Let me just log this to the console. So we have 74 characters, 74 allowed characters. I get it. From which 16 of them, remember we want the password length to be 16 over here. So we want 16 of them to be selected at random. I get it. So we're going to run a loop 16 times. And then each time the random number will be generated. And then um, a random letter that falls on that particular index will be picked. Or a letter that falls on that particular random index will be picked. I get it. So we want to always generate this. I get it. Then what we want to do is I don't want to let me not lock this here. So we want to run a loop. I get it. So we could say that for I equals 0, and then while I is less than password length. Are you getting it? Now remember, password length is going to be how long you want the password to be. Maybe you want your password to be 10, you want the password to be 20, 25, right? And remember, we are before that, let me do this, and I want to show you what I really mean. So let me remove the value from here, then let me log password length, right? Password length to the console, and it shows us that it's an input element. Are you getting it? And then over there we can access the value property. Let's go down there and we can see, right? So we can have the value, right? So we have the value over here, which is 16, all right? And I can just put value and then we'll go, but I actually want you guys to understand that there is a lot more properties, things that you can go in and look out for, and then you can work with them on your own, all right? So we have the value this. So when I come back here and I say dot value, oh, I closed the console, sorry. You realize that now it is the 16 that is being logged into the console. Are you getting it? And not um, the password, not the object itself. So the value. So the number is what we want to deal with. And so let me come back here and let me stop logging this and come back here and say that we are going to run the loop. So the loop is going to run how many times? The number of times, then the length the user wants the password. So password length, then we are going to what increase I, so I plus plus. All right, then inside our loop, that is where we are going to generate our random point. Are you getting it? Our random point. And so over here inside the function, we would say let password. So I would say let generated password equals an empty string over here. All right, and so now over here, random point is not defined. Okay, I was logging this to the console and it's outside the for loop, so that's why I was having that error in the console. So we want to generate a random point. Are you getting it? Then what we want to do is our generated password. We want to say sorry, generated password 1 2 plus equals. So it's going to start empty. Then the first time it runs, a character that falls for a character that falls on the random on the index of the random point will be selected. Are you getting it? So plus or equal to. So we can now say allowed characters. Are you getting it? Dot caret. Remember the caret property, the caret method on a string, and it's going to pick a string that falls on that particular point, and we can say that a random point. Are you getting it? So now the password has now been generated. Then we can say that this is now there. Then we can now log our generated password to the console. No, generate practice was no function. So now this is the password that has been generated, and when we save again, another random password has been generated. When we save again, another random password has been what generated. So that is working for us. If we should come back here and then we remove the check from the um, uppercase, all right, you realize that in the list of generated the password we have generated over here, there is no uppercase letter in it, and so that is what it's going to be. By default, we put everything on what unchecked, and so we come back here. Now the password has been generated. Are you getting it? Now when we generate the password, what we want to do is assign the password. Let me now close my console for now. We want the new generated password to now show over here. I getting it? So outside our loop, once the loop is done running, I getting it? Then we want to say that password box, because that is what contains our password. Our password box is password box dot dot inner text equals what generated password. All right. So we realize that now the new password has we see, so there's a new password showing over here. Then we save, then there's a new password showing again. Then we save, and there's a new password showing, and that keeps running. Now, what we want to do is let me put this over here, and then you guys can see something. And this runs very fast for us. Uh, Let me see if I can set interval. All right, and now we want to say that I'm trying to do something, but no, let me not get us confused over here, because I think I'm getting confused with what I'm trying to do. So let's just get it as simple as that. Then now we have back here, after the password is generated, then we assign the generated password to this place over here. All right, then we can get going. Then if we should come back to our HTML and then change this value, right, to let's say 5, and then you see, if you realize that our password, wait, now I think we have all right, so the reason this is, I think, how many characters? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Even though we have value here, we have set a minimum of 10, and so no matter what, the value is not going to go below that. So when we delete this, we realize that now we have only 5 characters. So we want to much for security reasons. We want to make sure the password is still strong enough. So at least 10 characters, at most 25. So we want to put that restriction over there. And also when the user is selecting, this is going to be, well, don't worry. Let me put value here and make this 16 by default. So we have that running for us. And then let's just do some finishing touches. All right, so we have the generate function. So we are going to always call the generate function. So generate password function, so that immediately the page loads, a new password is going to be generated. Then what we can actually do is say that when the user clicks on this button, I get it, we should also generate a new password, so that we can say generate button. I haven't assigned the password button over here. Right, we have only the copy button. So I could say that generate button equals delete button is document dot query selector. And then what I'm going to do inside here is what I gave this a class of generate button. So I'll select that. All right. So I'll select that. Then here. All right. So I would say that generate button. I'll now come back here and say that generate button dot on click. All right. Then we want to assign this to generate password. All right. So that when we click on this, oh wait, let me take off the parentheses. Right, so that when we click on the button, then a new password will be generated for us. So now our button is working, and we have that there. And then Let me see what I can do again. What else? What else can we do? Well, wait. So the next step I think we should take will be to copy the password, right? So now we can have copy button. Then we want to say that copy button dot on click. Are you getting it? Then we want to have a function. So we can actually use the add event listener method. Are you getting add event listener? Then we will listen to a click event. All right, then we are now going to pass a function which we will run when that event happens. Are you getting it? So you can either do it like this, or you can just click off button that on click, and then you write your anonymous function directly over there. Any of them is going to work, right? So we've used one of these methods. I get now. Let's use another method so that we can get exposed to how things are the several ways by which things can be done with JavaScript. So add event listener. When this is clicked, then we can now say that navigator dot clipboard. So the navigator, remember when we were doing the DOM object model, we have the navigator over here. So we have the navigator dot geolocation dot storage, we have the clipboard, right? So navigator dot clipboard dot write text. Are you getting it? And then the navigator dot clipboard dot write text, it takes up what an argument. Are you getting it? So we can say copy me. Are you getting it? So here when I come and I click here, and then I come back and then I say paste, you realize that the copy me which I have written over here has now been what been pasted. So I can come back here and say 11111 and save, and I go back here and I click here, I can come back and then paste and then 111. So whatever you specified here will be copied. I get it. So you, as you may have already guessed, what we are gonna do over here is what uh, put our what we want, what do we call it, what we want to copy. So we can now say that what we want to copy is this text. Remember, this text is the inner text of what, of our password box. So what we can do is say password box dot inner text, right? Great. So we have this password 17bg9. Then let me click here, let me try and paste. Great. And our password has now been copied, right? Let's generate a new password and then copy, and let's see. And then we've been able to paste, copy that password to the clipboard as well, right? So what we want to do is, after we have copied this, we want to just let the user know, right? So we can say alert and say that password has been copied, all right? Password has been copied. So now when I click here, password has been copied. So the user knows that yes, the action has been performed, and now the new password can be what, be pasted. So basically that is working. I get it. So let me click, let me remove this and generate password. Right, let me see, generate password, and something is wrong. Something, let me remove this. And there is something wrong, because if this is not checked, then this is not supposed to. If I have this, if I have this is not supposed to work. I think I have a problem somewhere. And so, all right. So the reason is I've initialized my allowed characters over here, right? So far as that loads fine. Inside now we've called the function, and then we, because initially all of these things were checked, these characters have now been added to it, right? And so what I'm supposed to do is I'll initialize my variable when the function is called, so that when I call the function, then the allowed characters will now be empty, right? Because the first time they were called, when the page loaded, it was empty, then these things got added. Now, when I'm calling the function, I've not reinitialized it, and so it's now, it still has those contents, right? So now let me come back and remove 123 and then do this. And rather there's no number showing, then now there is no special character showing in the new password, and there is no lowercase, so everything is now uppercase. And then when I do this, now it's empty because nothing is now inside my set of allowed characters. So I have this, and this is coming. All right, I have this, and now whatever is happening there works for us, right? So I think our password manager, our password generator is almost complete. Another thing we can actually do is let me see, well, we can make it seamless, right? So that as soon as the user clicks here and unchecks it, we'll run the password generator again. All right, so that they don't have to uncheck this and then come and click password generator. We want it to be that easy for them. So we would say that um, uppercase option, all right, uppercase option dot unchange dot unchange. All right, then we want to say that when it changes, then we'll run the password generator again. All right, so we'll have this, and right. So when I come back here, now the password generator runs again, and because this was not checked, now it's not included in the password. Now it works again. So I'm going to repeat the same thing for all the other options. And initially what I did with this demo, this that I built, I used an array. So I just looked through the array and then listened to that on chain event on each of them. So I would now come back and say lowercase, this is not bad yet, this is not bad, we can still work with it. So let's do this, then we can come back and have this, right? So anytime each of those things change, the password generator will run, and then the password is just going to contain the allowed characters over here. So you can see that working for us as easy and simple as that. All right, then we can still like, so I think everything basically works pretty fine for us. And I can come back here and let me see, range. Great. So the next thing we want to do is when we move this should also reflect the length for us. This shouldn't be static, right? So that I would say uh, back to my JavaScript, I want to select something again and say that range, password length. All right. So what I want to do is now assign. So let me remove the value from here. All right, because I want to play with this variable at a different place. So here now, where is my loop inside my function? So password length dot value. So here the only the value is going to work out and everything works for us now. So that I can now access this password length, right, separately. So I could say that password length dot on change. All right. Then what I want to do is say that all right, so I'm going to run a function. I want to run a function, right? And then I would say, but before that, when that changes, I have to generate the password again. All right, I have to generate the password. So when I move this, a new password will be generated. And remember, the length has changed. So this now is affecting the length of our password box, which I don't think it's not a good thing to. So we have to make sure that um, the our design should accommodate the longest length of the password. Are you getting it? So I could come back and over here we haven't specified anything. So uh, my main, I could give my main. I could give the main width. Sorry, my main. Oh, I'll give it a width of 300 pixels. Let me see how that. Oh wow, that was too small. Make it 500. That's too much. So 400 should be okay, right? So again, I think 400. That's okay. It works fine for us in this particular case. And let me just make my mind mine. increase the spaces so it looks a little better for us. And make this 20 so we can have everything spread here for us. And then I think this is okay. So the password wrapper, my padding, I can make it 15 pixels for top and down. All right, and right, so everything looks better for us. And then my button can now give it a padding of 20 pixels. That is too much. 15. 15 doesn't look bad. Then options, I'm gonna give them a gap of 20 pixels. That doesn't look bad as well. Then I can give it a margin top of 20 as well. So that right. So I think this design looks better and can accommodate any length of our password. So we'll leave it as that. Then what I was saying is that we want to make sure that when we change this should also reflect, and so that we are saying here is we will generate a new password, but then we could also say that password. Uh, so I could now come back and say that length indicator equals document dot query selector. We are doing a lot of selections over here. Query selector, and we say what do we have? So we have the range value, right? Range value. So we have dot range value, so that we come here and we say that length indicator dot inner text is going to be equal to this dot value, right? And then let's see when we change this. Oops. Okay, okay, so this should work with the anonymous function, not with the arrow function. So if I have this here like this, I change this, right? So this works for us perfectly when I'm using the this keyword. Um, I could just maintain it like that and then say that password length dot value, and it's still going to work. And still, when I have the arrow function over here, just that I wanted to do this so that you know that this also exists, something like this exists. And now this refers back to our password length over here, so that when you change it, the user knows that okay, my password length is 20 characters, and that works for us when we load the page. It's system by default because that is what it's going to have. Then when we change this to the new password should be generated, and we can have everything running for it. So we've now worked on our password generator, and I believe we've done a lot of things which we have covered so far. And let me just add a comment here and say that generate a new password, right? And then we could say that we are now calling it so that this happens anytime the page is loaded. If we don't call it here like this and we load the page, nothing happens, and we have to perform an action for the password to generate. But then we'll call this in. So anytime the page is loaded, a random password now is added, it's generated, and that is what we have for here. All right, so I just realized that I lost connection still, but then whatever we're supposed to learn, we have learned, and if there are any questions, you guys should just put it in the chat section in the groups, and then we'll still attend to it.